Well, it was touch and go there for a moment, but in the end, it's the Rams with a 2-score win over the Panthers. Trailing 10-7 at half. They scored 17 unanswered points in the second half to come away with this win. Matt Stafford, 1-1 when it comes to the touchdown, and he gave away his requisite interception, 26 of 33 for 253. Interesting attack when it came to the running game. We'll get to more of that in a moment here from the Rams, but all sorts of dysfunction by the Carolina Panthers. You got players trying to fight coaches. You got coaches getting fired. You got running backs on the trading block. Where will they go from here? Let's explore. Your post-game report is presented by SoFi. Break up with bad banking. Download the SoFi app as we break this one down with the two-time Super Bowl champ Bryant McFadden and our guy Ryan Wilson. Fellas, let's just go broad strokes here, big picture. Everything seems like the sky is falling with LA, but they come away with a 2-score win here. Does this feel like a turning point? Does this feel like a corner turned? Ryan, what do you make of the W here? Or is it just more opponent dependent?
This feels like you scheduled a homecoming opponent at the exact right time in the Carolina Panthers. You mentioned the dysfunction coming in with Matt Rule being fired. David Tepper was in the stands, presumably not very happy with how things were unfolded. You mentioned the unrest with Robbie Anderson. I'm sure we'll talk about that as well. But if you're the Rams, it's a win. And it's a 24-10 win. You go into your bye. You have a chance to get healthy. I'm sure the Odell Beckham rumors will persist until he decides on where he's going to play. Thankfully, Allen Robinson showed up today. We saw the defense make some big plays. But again, you're playing against a Panthers team where Baker Mayfield was out. P.J. Walker came in. He had to leave. Late in the fourth quarter, Jacob Eason came in, who had been cut and out of the league for a while after originally being drafted by the Colts. So, look, it's a victory, and I think that's what you take away from it. You're in an incredibly tight division. You needed to win this football game. At no point should you have been down to the Carolina Panthers, especially given the dysfunction we've talked about. But, again, they go into their bye week, have a chance to get healthy, and then come out of that bye week and have that divisional matchup against the 49ers.
Yeah, this was basically opponent dependent. They played against a team that has a lot going on, nothing positive. They just fired their coach. They were on their third-string quarterback. You actually saw the fourth-string quarterback in this game as well. And this was a must-win. You could not afford to lose to a team that just fired their coach, and they started their third-string quarterback, and you were the home team. This was a must-win. It was a little ugly. We didn't really see the dominating performance that we thought we would see, but they had enough to win. And one bright spot outside of just winning the ball game against a bad team, we finally saw Allen Robinson. I forgot he actually plays for the Rams. We finally had an Allen Robinson sighting getting into the end zone. The chemistry was there between Matthew Stafford and Allen Robinson. So that's a bright spot, something that hopefully they can build on coming off their bye.
Speaking of dysfunction, it was not reserved to just Carolina. Throughout the week, some headlines being made in Los Angeles when it came to Cam Akers and his future with the team, the possibility of there not being a future moving forward, and we'll see if he gets traded here in the days to come. But on the tail end of that, Akers does not appear. 8 different players rush the rock here, 7 if you take Stafford out of that equation, but 8 players get rushing attempts here, totaling 111 yards. Ryan, when you take a look at what this team is, not just big picture, but what this team is from a rushing attack, because, yes, it has been hard to throw the ball. They've had trouble protecting the quarterback. If you can establish that run the way they did here on Sunday, does that open up some things in this offense that maybe we haven't seen yet?
Yeah, absolutely. And, we're in the age of the passing game, but we've seen Mike McDaniel in Miami in his first year there, and for years now, Kyle Shanahan doing San Francisco, the running game is a huge part of the offense when you have a quarterback who is not particularly mobile or even one who is. And that's just a staple of how these offenses are evolving in an NFL where we throw the ball 40, 50 times a game sometimes. And I think the concern is when Cooper Kupp is your second leading rusher with 2 carries for 17 yards, that's an issue. Now, look, here's the good news. You can find running backs just about anywhere. That's sort of flip it, but also sort of true. It's not like you're looking for a franchise quarterback. But also, you can't draft one because the Rams don't have any draft picks. But perhaps they can swing a trade, which they like to do before the trade deadline, find someone on another team's practice squad. There are avenues to go where you can find players that can contribute in the backfield. It's not asking them to learn a complex defense, to run a bunch of routes. It's just to take this ball and run it through that hole and don't fumble it. And I think if you can get that going, then the Rams could be onto something. The bigger issue for me, though, Joe and BMAC, is that the offensive line is still a concern. They have one starter left from last year's Super Bowl team, and we've seen it show up week in and week out, and Matthew Stafford and all those bruises can attest to as much.
Yeah, one thing I'm starting to see and realize from head coach Sean McVay, he does not believe in a featured running back. I think he believes more in his system, and because of that, we will see a running back by committee. Remember when he had Ty Gurley, that relationship ended unexpectedly because, Sean McVay wasn't really, I don't know if he was pleased with what he was doing as an individual player, but it just didn't work out. And now hearing that Cam Akers might be on the outside looking in, a guy who they drafted high in the second round, if I'm not mistaken, to be that featured guy, they're going to look elsewhere. So it will be a running back by committee. But the bigger concern for the Rams, and you talk about just trying to continue to run the football, they have to improve on the offensive line side of things. Did pretty good today, but they played against a team that has a lot going on. But moving forward, they have to become more consistent, not just in run blocking, but also protecting the quarterback as well.
For those wondering at home, November 1 is your trade deadline in the NFL this season. It is fast approaching, and with that, we do have to talk about Christian McCaffrey and the dysfunction on the Carolina side of this game. Your coach is fired. Your quarterbacks are hurt. You got a wide receiver trying to argue with a coach asked to leave the sidelines by his own team. And then your one productive offensive weapon is now on the trading block. B-Mac, let's go your way first here. What is the next move for Carolina? They're a far way from being a contender or even a competitor, but what is the next move in their timeline?
Well, if they're considering trading Christian McCaffrey, they're telling all of us they're blowing it up and they're going to start a rebuild. Based on what we saw today, if Christian McCaffrey was on a serviceable team, just say that, not necessarily saying a playoff caliber team, but a team that can compete, he can be that difference maker that said team needs to make a run and getting a playoff spot. This man is a baller. I mean, he had 20 total touches. He led the team in rushing. He led the team in receiving as well. This man is a outstanding player. The only concern is health. But when he is healthy, you can't question what type of player he is. Me personally, I think he could be a building block for whatever it is they're trying to do moving forward there in Carolina. But if they trade Christian McCaffrey, they're telling us they're going to start a rebuild, and they have a lot of pieces to fill, especially on the offensive side, and it's going to be hard in doing so. So if you're a Carolina Panther fan, right now the only thing you pretty much can root for offensively is Christian McCaffrey. If they trade him away, good luck. And best to you for the next two to 3 years, because it's going to be a long, long road.
That's right, B-Mac. If they give it to Christian McCaffrey, they're going to be rooting for Bryce Young because that's going to be their only hope. And they're going to have to wait 8 or 9 months until that hope shows up in Charlotte. And to another point, B-Mac, you know this better than I do, for sure, is that if you're in an organization where they get rid of their best players and are constantly in a rebuild, free agents don't want to come to that organization. David Tepper, by all accounts, likes to meddle. It's his team. He can do what he likes. But so far, things have gone sideways. He gave a pretty contentious press conference in the post-Matt Rule firing a few days ago. The quarterback situation is in flux. There's conversation about moving on from young players. You talk about Christian McCaffrey, and there's no reason for optimism in Carolina 6 weeks after we were having conversations like, you know what, maybe Baker Mayfield can use this change of scenery, and maybe he'll be a better football player. That is no longer the case, and right now they're holding on for dear life to try to win a few football games down the stretch, and it looks bleak, and perhaps bleaker in Carolina than anywhere else in the NFL in terms of winning football games, Joe.
Look at our NFL draft expert, Ryan Wilson, sneaking in an early look at his big board. We appreciate you guys. All right, those two are going to stay put as we take a look at the fantasy performers coming out of this 24-10 Rams win. They haven't blown anyone's hair back this season, but across the board, Cooper Kupp gave you 16, Matthew Stafford 14, Allen Robinson. I mean, if you still have him in your starting lineup, something has gone terribly wrong. So we are happy for you on this given Sunday because he got to the end zone, caught a few balls for 17 total points. Do
you want a sports network that delivers everything that matters about the game? The highlights, the picks, the instant analysis, no yelling, no fake debates, no politics. Hit the subscribe button and never miss a moment.